Milwaukee Bucks fans, welcome back to Bucks Latest presented by FanArch. I'm your host, Dean Simon. Please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on those post notifications to stay up to date and in the know with all the latest Milwaukee Bucks updates. So, this first segment today is a little bit jarring, and I don't know if anything would really materialize from it, but Evan Sidery of Forbes has reported that the Bucks have explored a potential sign and trade deal with Jonathan Kuminga from the Golden State Warriors, and it's kind of puzzling to me because, of course, the Bucks would have to offer a player like Kyle Kuzma and a high-valued pick, and Sidery says that it would be Kuzma, the 2031 first-round pick, which is to have pretty high value, and another prospect on top of that just to make things interesting to kind of get the ball rolling in terms of completing a deal of this nature. And with Kuminga's potential arrival with the Bucks, let's say, for hypothetical sake, there would be a lot of pros and cons with regard to his arrival that I don't really know if it would end up being the right decision for Milwaukee, because Jonathan Kuminga has been very outward in telling people his belief that he can become an all-star player one day, and that's the level where he wants to get to in his development, that he believes he can develop into an all-star caliber talent, that he can be the number one scoring option on a team. He wants to be that guy that a team relies upon to score. And going potentially to a team with Giannis Antetokounmpo smack dab in the prime of his career, it would not work. Though having a player that has those kinds of qualities, those kinds of on-ball scoring qualities, wouldn't be a terrible thing to pair with Giannis, as we saw with Chris Middleton, who proved to be one of the biggest reasons, if not the biggest reason outside of Giannis, as to why they took home the 2021 title. Kuminga still has a lot to work on in terms of his offensive production and the ways in which he scores and gets to the basket, because while he did prove to be pretty efficient as the Warriors' kind of number one option against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the playoffs this past year, averaged about 21 points, 3 rebounds, 62% true shooting in 5 games against one of the league's best defenses, that the Warriors, of course, they didn't win any of those games in which he did put up those kinds of numbers and that kind of production. So it would really be difficult to imagine how he and Giannis would coexist in the same offense outside of running in transition, because, of course, Kuminga is an athletic freak, and that's where a lot of his damage would be done while being paired with Giannis, or at least that would be my estimation. In terms of the cons, it would just be that he would be too ball dominant, that he wouldn't pair well with Giannis because he wants to still develop into that all-star caliber guy, but he may have to fit into a more niche role with the Bucks. And having his situation unfurl with the Warriors how it has been after being paired with Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler, I feel like it wouldn't be much different if that same exact scenario were to happen with Giannis. So another pro, though, of a potential Kuminga to Milwaukee transaction is that he has all the potential in the world to be an all-league defender, could potentially guard 1 through 4, 1 through 5, because just his mix of size and strength and agility, his leaping ability, it gives him, it can unlock so many doors for him as a prospective elite defender, but he would have to really buy in on that end consistently if he wants to do that at an all-league level. And I fear that we just haven't seen that so far in his short tenure with the Warriors, though he is still only 22 years old. He's still clearly developing, and he does have high upside, but going to Milwaukee might not be the right deal, and especially with a package that they would have to offer Kyle Kuzma and somewhat little of draft capital and a prospect that might not necessarily catch the Warriors' eye. The Warriors probably balk at this deal. The Bucks probably balk at this deal for the reasons I listed before. It just doesn't really seem like a good deal all around and something that wouldn't have a good chance of materializing. So I'm kind of out on that, but we have to see what the Bucks do going forward in the offseason. Anyways, the Bucks were, of course, able to re-sign Gary Trent Jr. on a 2-year, $7.5 million deal, but what I thought was the most interesting about this was that they got him back on a massively discounted price point, because you would think after his close to the regular season, after the short playoff stint against the Pacers, in which he, in games 3 and 5, scored probably a combined 70 points, hit 23-pointers, kept the Bucks season alive single-handedly, that he could earn a pretty decent salary for himself. And while I know that Bill Simmons isn't necessarily the most respected NBA media personality from the eyes of Milwaukee Bucks fans. Bill Simmons on his podcast came out and said something similar with regard to Gary Trent Jr. and while talking about the Bucks, that Gary Trent Jr. could have easily earned himself a salary of $8 to $10 million annually, and I was fully on board with this idea, and that's why I was very skeptical of the Bucks being able to get him back, because unless he really loves the city of Milwaukee and loves playing with Giannis, it's going to be hard to get a player of his caliber back for the salary range in which they did, where, as Bill Simmons said, you could see him getting a 2-year, $16 million deal pretty easily. And of course, they're able to bring him back on a 2-year, $7.5 million deal. But as a guy that shot over 41% from three in the regular season, of course, lit things up in the playoffs as the Bucks' clear number 2 option. He showed a lot of, again, like on-ball scoring. His ball handling was amazing. He would get into the mid-range, step back on the left elbow for jumpers. He was just a flat-out dominant scorer in the playoffs. And you would have thought that he'd leave. He'd maybe use that leverage that he had created from having a fantastic otherworldly playoff series for a player of his standard, of his caliber, that he would go somewhere else and take the money. But instead, he chose to return to Milwaukee, again, along with Taurean Prince and Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins, all guys that it was not crystal clear as to how the Bucks would bring them back, what kind of salary range they would come back on. And Gary Trent Jr., it's really incredible to me that they were able to bring him back at the price they did. Anyways, this one is pretty interesting, but Bennedict Mathurin, who had a couple of great performances for the Pacers in the finals, kind of made himself already a franchise legend over there, though they didn't come away with the championship. Bennedict Mathurin went onto social media and shared a picture of him dunking on Myles Turner when they were teammates together in a practice setting. And you could imagine some bad blood is going to start to boil over between these two teams when the regular season comes back, because this has been a rivalry that has been brewing for the past 2.5 years. Started in the NBA Cup, that whole tournament, when Halliburton hit the 3, did the Dame time celebration, and then they end up matching up in the playoffs 2 times after that. Of course, Giannis scoring the 64 points. There was the whole controversy over who got the game ball, whether one of the Pacers players stole it and gave it to a rookie that scored his first points instead of giving it to Giannis, who just broke the Bucks franchise record in scoring. All of this stuff happening on court spats. Tyrese Halliburton's dad going up to Giannis after they just won this previous playoff series and getting all in his face. So many different things going back and forth with these teams over the past 2 seasons now. And with Myles Turner heading to Milwaukee, this fierce rival, things are only going to be going up. And Bennedict Mathurin is just kind of throwing more flames into the fire, or, putting more, you know what I mean. But Bennedict Mathurin will certainly be looking to go straight at Myles Turner. It's not unlike him as a pretty aggressive rim runner and athletic player in general, to try and attack Myles Turner in the paint when these two teams match up again in the regular season, and try and get an actual dunk on him in a game instead of that practice one in the photo that was shown and distributed by him. So I am so looking forward to this, because even though it's a really interesting situation, because obviously the Pacers just went to the finals, took the 68-win Thunder to 7 games, but with Tyrese Halliburton out for all of next year, with Myles Turner packing up and leaving for Milwaukee, the tides have so quickly turned for the Bucks in this one-on-one scenario. So going into the regular season, I'm just going to be absolutely fired up for these matchups, and we'll see what comes of it, but expecting a lot of fireworks, a lot of scuffles, so definitely something to be prepared for. And last but not least, Bucks GM John Horst, he, of course, ended up bringing in Gary Harris from the Orlando Magic, a pretty great veteran presence that can help certain guys in the locker room, maybe a guy like Ryan Rollins, who could be focusing more on his defensive intensity, though it's something that he's proved to be amazing at. He's just an awesome defender all around. Having a guy like Gary Harris to kind of take him under his wing and coach him up a little bit more could be great for Ryan Rollins, and just not just him, but for everybody else on this team. A guy also like Andre Jackson, who that's one of his hallmarks, is that he is just a freak athletic defender, and that's, a skill that he could build on with Gary Harris joining the team. But John Horst, after bringing him in, he led off a few comments about Gary Harris, and he said that Gary's leadership and experience will provide further depth and stability to our backcourt, and his extensive playoff background will be instrumental during the postseason. We are thrilled for Gary to be a Buck. And this makes all the sense in the world. I was raving about this signing when it happened, because even though Gary Harris didn't necessarily pop on the stat sheet when he was with the Magic these past couple of years, he has the track record of being a fantastic playoff performer. With the Denver Nuggets early in his career, he got to a point where he was averaging 17, 18 points in the regular season and kind of maintaining that production into the playoffs, and that was around 2017-ish, 2018, but it still stands. He's still young enough at this point of his career to potentially bring some kind of defensive intensity and some kind of spark to a Bucks team that will be looking to remain competitive. Of course, bringing in Myles Turner to pair with Giannis in the front court. They're not... This team isn't trying to lose anytime soon. And Gary Harris coming in, it's not like the league has been altered with this move, but it shows the broader NBA sphere that the Bucks are really trying to stack up on veteran talent, that they're trying to both compete for the present and the future by bringing in a guy that, again, could take these players under his wing. So, love Gary Harris' signing as well. He's not a terrible shooter either. He took a lot of wide open shots in the corners for these past couple of years. He's going to be a great drive and kick option for guys like Giannis or even Ryan Rollins or Andre Jackson, who are guys that just beeline it to the rim. So I'm looking forward to what he will bring in spot minutes to the end of the Bucks rotation, and I'm hoping he can contribute pretty good things. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for watching another episode of Bucks Latest presented by FanArch. I've been Dean Simon. Again, make sure to like, tell me what you think in the comments, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications to stay up to date and in the know with all the latest Milwaukee Bucks updates. I'll see you in the next one, and go Bucks.